I'm John Barrasso, United States Senator for Wyoming. The Code of the West says, when you make a promise, keep it. In Washington, promises don't seem to mean much these days. For almost 2 years, President Obama and Democrats in Congress have broken their promises on jobs, on spending, and on health care. The White House promised that massive federal spending would keep the unemployment rate below 8%. Instead, what taxpayers got was $800 billion in new debt and nearly 10% unemployment. 48 states have lost jobs. Friday's job figures confirm that far too many Americans are still looking for work. While the White House touts its recovery summer, most Americans see an alarming autumn. People are beginning to realize that the only jobs congressional Democrats are really focused on are their own. The president promised to be financially responsible with your tax dollars. Yet our federal government continues down a ruinous path of outrageous spending, borrowing, and piling more and more debt on future generations. Our nation is now over $13 trillion in the red, a number so large it's difficult to imagine. Since Democrats took over the Congress, the national debt has grown by $5 trillion. And the president's own budget says it will grow by trillions more by the end of his term. Astonishingly, instead of cutting wasteful Washington spending, President Obama and the Democrats plan to raise taxes. Last week, Congress fled Washington while one of the largest tax hikes in our nation's history hangs over the heads of working families. Rather than forcing Congress back into session to do the people's business, the president merely waved goodbye. Interviewed recently about why he wouldn't extend all of the tax cuts, President Obama declared that he had, quote, a whole bunch of better ways for us to spend that money. With all due respect, Mr. President, this money isn't yours. It belongs to the American people. The Obama tax hikes are yet another job-killing burden that the American people and American employers cannot afford. Raising taxes on anyone in the middle of a recession is the worst thing we can do. Our problem is not that we're taxed too little. The problem is that Washington spends too much. As a doctor, I've also heard from Americans who are concerned about the president's broken health care promises. In Wyoming and across the country, we are now bracing for the president's new health care law. As you may remember, during the debate over health care, President Obama promised time and time again that if you like your current health care plan, you can keep it. Well, it's now clear that the president has broken that promise too. In June, the Obama administration took 2 pages of the health care law and transformed them into 121 pages of bureaucratic rules, regulations, and red tape that clearly violate the president's promise. Employers, large and small across the country, say they may be forced to stop offering health insurance to employees simply because of the cost and the penalties of the president's new health care law. And millions of American seniors could be forced from the Medicare Advantage plans that they know and they like. At the time of his inauguration, President Obama talked about how the American people had entrusted him with a great responsibility to keep the public's trust. The president has failed to keep his promises on jobs, on spending, and on health care. Frankly, very little trust remains. The president's policies are irresponsible and unsustainable. Worse, many Americans fear the damage done by these policies may also be irreversible. I believe there is too much at stake and far too much to lose for us to allow bad policies and reckless spending to remain unchecked or unchallenged. And so we will fight for a dramatic change in priority and direction. Republicans have a pledge to America, a pledge to prevent tax hikes, to reduce federal spending, and to work every day to repeal the massive new health care law and replace it with common sense reforms that lower costs. If you are tired of Washington's broken promises, you now have a choice: more of the same or a new direction. Thanks for listening.